Hi everyone, my name is Kris Ruby and I am the founder of RubyMediaGroup, a digital PR, content marketing, and personal branding agency located in New York. I am so excited to be here today to participate in the MarketMuse first ever conference, Content Strategy Collective Live, speaking about all things digital PR and SEO, and the title of my presentation is Eat Your Heart Out. So let's get into it. Disclosures. The first disclosure and only disclosure I have for this presentation is that the screenshots that are used in this deck happen to be screenshots of me because I own the rights to use those images in here. That is why you won't see screenshots used of other people throughout this presentation. So if there's more than 3 pictures of me, that's the reason why. The agenda for today, here are the 4 main things we will discuss. First, PR for SEO, EAT and quality rater guidelines. How many times is PR really mentioned? How many times do we talk about expertise, and what does that mean for your digital PR campaign? Next, credibility markers. How do you build trust with Google and the media? And how do you accomplish your business goals and objectives in the process? PR brand building 101. How to build your brand offline before you build it online and translate that into digital authority. I'll walk you through the proven process and steps to make that happen for your brand. Digital PR optimization, how to turn press and media coverage into content that ranks, and I'll also show you a growth hack that I use and what platform you can use to make that happen to get more exposure. Let's start out with what PR is and what PR isn't. Publicity supports and expands trust. It should never detract from it. However, one of the biggest misconceptions is that some people say all PR is good PR. I think that is false. No, not all PR is good PR. Some PR is actually bad PR. Some PR can actually hurt your brand and your online reputation, and that will have a negative impact on other things like EAT that we're going to talk about today. So PR actually has to be done right. It has to be strategic. You have to think about the opportunities you say yes to and also what you say no to. And yes, there are some things you can and should say no to. I'll teach you how to do that and what the process is for going through queries as well. But what is PR? Public relations, at the end of the day, should be about building relationships with the public and your brand. How does your brand relate to the public? And someone can help you walk through what that looks like. But public relations is more than link building. Public relations is also more than relationship building. At the end of the day, if the media doesn't trust you, they won't book you. If the media can't find you on organic search results, they're going to book someone who they can find and who has a stronger digital presence than you. So what is the difference of old school PR and digital PR today? Let's take a look back at the history of public relations. Before, the old school model was to have a Rolodex like you see here. I'm not sure if anyone even remembers these things called a Rolodex where people would use them and traditional PR firms would write under A, maybe it would have a reporter's name, the outlet that they wrote for, and the beat that they covered. But that is just simply not sustainable anymore. That model can't be sustainable. Why? Because reporters have much less loyalty to the outlets that they work with. They frequently change and hop from outlet to outlet. They also change from beat to beat. So a beat is what a reporter writes about, what they cover. So it is much harder to, for example, forge a strong relationship with a reporter that may be covering tech, but maybe the next year they're not covering tech at all. Now they're writing about parenting, and who knows, maybe they're even leaving the industry and want to move from journalism to PR. And this is why it becomes much harder to do PR using this old school model and why it's no longer sustainable. It's also important to note the correlation here. So media rooms, newsrooms are shrinking, and PR is growing. There are for every one reporter, there are 6 PR professionals. So that makes it much harder for you to get press coverage for your brand and for your business. It means that you really have to stand out with whatever it is that you're pitching. Let's look at the difference today of digital PR. Obviously, it just means so much more. There's so many more things you're doing than what people think you're actually doing. Reactive and proactive pitching, for one. Reactive pitching has grown exponentially because we have things like Harrow or PropNet where we can see what reporters are writing about in real time, and we can reply to those queries and give them exactly the source that they are looking for, depending on those queries, which was very different actually than an old school approach, which said, I'm going to look up what you've written about and I'm going to hope that you write about it again, and I'm going to hope you reply to my pitch because this is what you're interested in. But as we've seen, sometimes reporters, they've exhausted what they're writing about. They're not going to update those old stories. They're going to write about something new, and there's really, no metrics that can show just because they wrote about it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to cover that again. And that's why reactive is such a better exit. No, it's really, in terms of conversion rates, it's so much higher than proactive pitching. What I mean by proactive is pitching people based on other stories they've written. Reactive is saying, I'm going to pitch you because you're writing this today and I see that you need a source. So that's one component. Then there's media relations, replying to media queries, providing strategic counsel, managing a brand's social media, reputation management, monitoring media mentions and brand sentiment, community management, investor relations, electronic press kit creation, and media training. So the role of a publicist and the role of digital PR is not just link building. It's not just managing relationships. It's really opportunity building. It's partnership building. It's looking for all the different ways that we can connect you to different entities online and offline through building relationships and also building strategic partnerships. So links are part of that. Building relationships is part of it. Strategic counsel is part of it. But they all make up a larger piece of the pie. Digital authority is built through content, podcasts, videos, broadcast media, audiograms, social media, press mentions. And when we look at traditional media coverage, it was a different type of model. It's also much harder to get recordings if someone does a TV segment or even if they're on a radio show. Try getting a clip when someone is on a radio show. It's much harder than asking for a clip of the podcast recording, which they already put out there and it's easier for you to get. Traditional media coverage is only one sliver of someone's overall brand identity today. And while those primetime TV hits are great ego bait for short-term satisfaction, they're not necessarily going to result in the backlinks that someone may be looking for to drive digital authority in an EIT-driven world. And I should know, in terms of my background, I have been on air as a national commentator covering all things social media, tech, and politics more than 200 times. And I will tell you that not every time you're on TV will you get a link. In fact, most times you're going to have to go through a third-party outlet to try and get a copy of the video at all, because not every TV segment makes it online. So I have a lot of expertise in that area, specifically when it comes to broadcast media, and I can tell you that there are other things in terms of SEO and PR tactics. If you want to get links or hits or other things online, there are probably other ways to get them. We're going to walk you through that today. Here's a fact most people don't talk about. I've been in the industry for more than 15 years, and one thing that I have seen is that all of your current media coverage will eventually get buried on Google. I have seen people get great media coverage that sometimes those outlets go out of business. Sometimes they remove a contributor's everything that a contributor has added to a media outlet. You never know how long media coverage is going to last or stay up. So as a tip I want to leave you with, always make sure you take screenshots of the media coverage you have, because you don't know how long it's going to last online for. You don't know if it's going to be pulled down. And if you're like any of my other clients, you've probably spent a lot of time crafting answers for media outlets. You want to make sure you don't lose all of that hard work that you've done. So save that in a file somewhere, because coverage will inevitably come down at some point. Could be, a year from now, could be 20 years from now. Either way, you want to make sure you have copies of those answers. But the point here is that this model is not sustainable, that you're going to work with a PR firm or in-house and do PR for 3 or 6 months and that's going to last. You need to think about PR as being part of your workflow. Just like you do content marketing and just like you do SEO, PR is something that you want to be doing on a weekly basis, whether you're getting on a podcast, whether you are doing a roundup, whether you're doing expert quotes or doing interviews or even a social audio. You want to make sure that you are figuring out, how can I consistently stay in front of my target audience through different digital PR methods? Because as I said earlier, all of your current media coverage is eventually going to get buried. So what are you doing to replace that? Many companies today are still lacking a disciplined digital PR program. And I hate to break it to you, but replying to Harrow, help a reporter out for those who don't know, is not a PR program. That is a singular PR tactic, but that is not an entire PR program. So that if that is all you're doing, I'm sorry to say there's much more that you can be doing. Social audio is the new desk side. So it is now possible through platforms like Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, Spotify Green Room, where you can pitch a reporter live in real time as if you are having a digital desk side with a reporter. And social content creators are shaping the modern day digital PR landscape. So you want to make sure you're active in all these places so that when they are doing live pitch rooms, you have the opportunity to interact and engage with reporters. But you need to understand what makes a good story to begin with, and we'll talk about that too. So PR for link building, or PR for SEO link building. Here are some things you need to know. Every media outlet has its own policy on links. No two media outlets are going to have the same editorial policy when it comes to backlinks, and some actually are never going to provide a link at all. And here's a quote from a writer where they said, "Sometimes my editors will eliminate links." The truth is, no PR firm can tell you if you're going to get a backlink. We don't know, just like the writer doesn't even know. We all know when the story comes out. At least that is how, the PR firms, mine and others that I work or that I know, that is how they all operate. Okay, so this notion that someone can guarantee a link from true, organic, SEO, ethical media outlets, we just don't know. We'll never know until the story comes out, and that's the truth. John Mueller shook up the digital PR and SEO world when he said that we should be talking about digital PR more in general, and that, quote, "I love some of the things I see from digital PR. It's a shame it often gets bucketed with the spammy kind of link building. It's just as critical as tech SEO, probably more so in some cases, or many cases." I agree. And so I replied, digital PR is not done with the intention of building links when it is true editorial public relations. A link is a bonus, but the mention is what we're after. We never control links. Clients hire PRs for exposure, they hire SEOs for links. So it's important to make that distinction. I also replied that the primary KPIs in a media relations campaign include press coverage secured, increase in brand lift, increase in media mentions and target outlets. Links are the icing on the cake. But they're never the cake, the mention is. And fundamentally, this right here may be probably the most important line in this whole presentation as to what separates how a PR views links versus how an SEO views links. So I view, a PR views the mention as the cake, right? So, but an SEO may view the actual link as the cake. So that difference there is important to note. The Quality Radar Guidelines, I'm not sure why this says QQG here, but the Quality Radar Guidelines clearly state that we need outside sources to verify credibility. So how do you get that third-party trust? Well, I will teach you that today, how you get it. EIT makes you more trustworthy by appearing in trusted publications. This means ultimately that your conversion path will have less friction. When you craft a brand image, you have power over public perception. Perception leads to trust, which leads to your ultimate goal of more business. So let's get into what that means. But before we do that, advertising is saying you're good, but PR is ultimately someone else you're saying you're good, or getting someone else to say you're good. And this is what we hear over and over and over again in the Quality Radar Guidelines. And I'm going to walk you through examples of what that means, right? So we hear expertise, formal expertise, not regular expertise, not having another writer pretend that they're subject matter expertise, but actual formal expertise. High quality pages and take time, effort, expertise, and talent or skill. Sharing your personal experience is a form of everyday expertise that's often really overlooked, which is why documenting what you know as a subject matter expert, whether it is in a podcast or just recording on your phone, anything that you're doing that you can then transcribe will not only help you, it will also help the SEO team. It will help both of them work in unity. It will give them more things that you are saying to extract out of your subject matter expertise. Created with little to no time, effort, expertise, or manual creation will add little to no value for users. So what does that tell us? If there's no evidence of EAT, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, that is a problem for you. We hear this over and over and over. And again, I only did about, these screenshots are from the Google Quality Radar guidelines, and there's about 3 pages of screenshots I've included. And it's really important to note that I believe, after studying this extensively, I don't understand how someone can truly exhibit expertise, authority, and trustworthiness without digital PR. Full stop. I'm going to go on record and say that. I do not know how you can truly meet what they are looking for here without having some component of digital PR as part of your integrated workflow. You want to be trustworthy, but what does it mean to be trustworthy? Well, Google mentions it many times here that they're looking for trustworthy sources. So highest rating versus lowest rating. Lowest is inexpert, unauthoritative, and untrustworthy. So right after this, we're going to walk through what it actually means to be trustworthy. I think it's also important how many times reputation information is mentioned, right? So they talk about reputation information, being well-known, journalists, authors, bloggers, professionals, lawyers, and doctors. We also know that for YMYL, your money or your life, you are being held to a much higher standard. This is why every agency and every PR firm also needs to understand what that means, especially if they're booking interviews or doing content creation. You cannot do PR and have little to no understanding of what this means, because if you don't understand, that means that the PR firm could essentially be leaving opportunities on the table or doing things that can hurt you because they don't realize what can help or what can hurt in the eyes of Google. That's why this should really be, I believe, required reading for everyone. Even if you're not in SEO, PRs really need to understand these documents and what this means when you are coming up with content creation strategies or booking interviews, as I said. So what is a very high level of expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness? Well, we talk about very positive reputation of the creator of main content. Again, we talk about trust. You should expect to find reputable information from well-known content creators, appropriate expertise. This content should be edited, reviewed, and updated on a regular basis. It should come from real-life professionals. So what kind of expertise is required for that page to truly achieve its purpose? The thing that we hear over and over and over again is that you're being held to a high standard, that other people online need to say that you are the expert. It is not enough for you to say you're the go-to subject matter expert. What we read in Quality Reader guidelines is that other people need to say that. Well, who are these people they refer to? And how can you get that? 2 words, digital PR. Digital PR is how you get the thing that they're amorphously referring to over and over and over again. And here, we just don't see the words digital PR mentioned, but there's no greater way to achieve what is being asked of you here than with digital PR. If you want other people to talk about you, and if we're going to look at these other sources to say how great you are, well, those other people are journalists, producers, bookers, writers, right? It is that entire media ecosystem, and we're going to talk about how you tap into them, okay? So every important decision truly starts with a search. Every decision online, every booker is looking for a subject matter expert. Every potential client is looking for someone to solve their problem. Every podcast host wants a great guest. So how can you be the thing that each of those people in this media ecosystem is looking for? It all starts and ends with search, and it starts and begins with what you are giving them in that organic search journey to help them on that process, to show that you're actually an expert. It also starts with a leap of faith, but there are things you can do to help someone trust you, or to make sure that no one ever books you or no one ever works with you again because no one trusts you. Let's look at an example here. If we talk about poor reputation management with a doctor, right? Doctor could post 100 fake reviews. They could ask their staff to do these reviews. Maybe they haven't updated their blog in years. Probably not that trustworthy. They don't reply to any patient questions on patient review sites. They may even ignore patient feedback and make no improvement at all. At the end of the day, no one wants to put their health in the hands of someone they don't trust. But similarly, let's look at how PR ties into poor reputation management. So this is an area we see all the time. Let's say a producer is ready to go. They want to book that medical expert. They have seen examples of that expert online, what they look like talking, what they look like writing, what they look like on video. But then They stumble upon their terrible reputation where people say that they're not really an expert, and they say that they have no idea what they're talking about, and that they hurt their health and never cured anything and made their problems worse. That booker may drop using that expert because in their mind, not one review, but many reviews, many different negative stories and reviews all together may hurt that person's expertise in the eyes of the media. And this is where it's not just that you hire a PR firm and their job is to just get you booked all day. It cannot be that disjointed from the rest of someone's presence online. And this is really, I think, where a lot of people go wrong, that they think it is. That they think, no, just get me booked. Who cares about my reviews? Well, let me tell you who cares. The media cares. Why do they want to put their job on the line and their reputation on the line when you haven't taken care of your own reputation online? So what are the reasons to trust someone? They are who they say they are. Intuition, digital breadcrumbs, things match up. They are a proven entity. They also have related entities in search that show that they're a proven entity. Low risk, high reward. You're not the first to take a chance. Others have come before you. Trustworthy content and people make the internet a better place. Every decision to convert is going to begin with trust and will end in one of two ways. The person will either show that they're worthy of that trust, or the person will never be trusted again. And in PR terms, that means a person will never be booked again. Trust is just as important when it comes to PR. If you're not who you say you are, if you mislead the public in interviews, if you don't take it seriously, being called upon as a subject matter expert, you're not going to be booked again. Anytime you're asked to be a public figure in the media or asked for your subject matter expertise, it's a calling. You're being called to educate the public at a high level. You need to take that commitment seriously. Just like updating your website, you need to update your knowledge. You need to update your brain with things that you know about so that anytime they call you, you're on the ball and on the money with what it is you're going to talk about. But where does COVID tie into all of this? It ties into in so many ways. So COVID accelerated the rapid increase of a digital economy based on trust. It also accelerated the need for a robust digital presence for every business. Businesses must prioritize not only appearing more trustworthy on their online presence, but actually being more trustworthy. I can't tell you how many times people hire PR firms and they say, I don't want you to think I don't care about these other things. I don't want to join these organizations. I don't want to do these things. But you have to do those things because offline trust is what will translate to online trust. And you know who you don't trust? The people who have an amazing digital presence but do not have a body of work to back up that expertise and that presence that you see online. Good marketing and great PR ultimately will mean nothing if it's fluff and there's nothing to support it. This is where doing webinars, doing podcasts, publishing in trade journals, even medical trade journals, if you're a doctor, all of these things will really add exponentially to your credibility. EAT is an important part of your digital PR or SEO strategy, but how can PR increase your EAT? As I said, the truth is that not all authority is going to be built online first. And ultimately, Google's a business. They don't want to drive search results to pages that deceive, manipulate, or hurt users, especially when it comes to YMYL, your money, your life. So how can you help this business, that is Google, trust you? How can you align your PR intentions with what Google's intentions are? They want to keep people on their site. They don't want to drive people to people or pages that are not trustworthy. So how can you think about this when you're creating content and also when you're doing media interviews? It starts with helping people trust you, and that starts offline. Every search is made in the quest for truth. Trustworthy people offline, I believe, are the most deserving of trust online, but they're often the least likely to know how to leverage digital platforms to showcase that expertise, which is where someone like myself comes in, because we help people do that. Every digital action starts with a kernel of trust and a kernel of truth. So the key question is, are you making it easier for someone to trust that you're the right choice, or are you making it harder? In the post-pandemic economy, you don't get to take it slow when it comes to building trust. If you've not built trust online, you're out of the game, full stop. Your number one priority outside of servicing your customers is building trust within this media ecosystem you do business with or you want media with, which includes referrals, vendors, clients, patients, producers, bookers, and even podcast hosts. Sorry that I'm losing my voice. Every digital action you take should take you one step closer to someone somewhere trusting that you're the right choice. And yes, that includes a producer or a writer. They're looking every single day for people just like you with the subject matter expertise that you have. But if they look and they see that you've only done one podcast, they look at images, they see there's like 2 images of you, they're not that great, the graphics look terrible, they can't find a recent video of you, they only see a video of you in the search results from 5 years ago, guess what? They're going to choose someone who takes their online reputation and presence more seriously, who does a spring cleaning all the time on their online reputation, and who shows that they're in the game. So, if that's a social media expert, for example, doesn't mean the last time they're talking is how to get more Twitter followers. It means they understand what's going on when you click Google News today that Spotify Green Room just came over. It's a rival of Clubhouse. We have Twitter Spaces, we have Facebook Live coming out next week. It doesn't just mean that you've read some articles. It means that you're in that ecosystem and you can definitively say, here's my opinion on Spotify Green Room versus Clubhouse. Here's why it's better. Here's why it's not better. Here's what I've noticed. Here's what gem farming means. Here's what it means to record audio. Here's what it means that if you record for over 1 hour, you may lose that audio altogether. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just that you know what's going on, it's that you're part of what's going on, and that you can speak knowledgeably about what's going on and how that ties into the larger media cycle and news ecosystem. Ultimately, all of these things they're digital breadcrumbs of organic PR. They should build trust, equity, which is really an asset that's going to increase over time and expand. PR done right, keyword here, done right, is an investment and revenue generating asset. It should be an opener for you. If someone looks you up, let's say you're part of YPO or YEC is a group I'm a part of, or you're trying to get your foot in the door somewhere else. People are going to search for you. Maybe you want to have a really important meeting with an investor. PR should support all of these things when they look you up. It's a door opener. PR done right is a door opener. It should tell people this person is who they say they are. They are an expert. They are an authority, and I can trust them. They should also know that this person is not going to rip you off. And what does that mean? Well, there are many ways in media that you can quote-unquote rip someone off. It means you can give them bad information. It means you can misinform the public. It means you don't take that role seriously of what it actually means to inform the public. It means you can go on there and do things and not think about disclosures and not follow guidelines. It means someone who is not following the ethical considerations and guidelines that are put in place or doesn't even follow up with or follow what they are. Right? All of these things are really, really important in this system. So what can you do to build trust? Here are the credibility markers. Here's the point where we get to some screenshots I talked about where I use my own to give you as examples because I have the rights to use these images and the screenshots used for this. So this arrow here, this is an example of a Clubhouse bio. This Clubhouse bio, right, you can see TV news journalist, or for you maybe you want to say as seen on or as a frequent subject matter expert has appeared in. Social audio has made it more important than ever to have all of these mentions, these media outlets on your social audio profiles. It's an immediate indicator of trust. Now let's look at the second half of my profile. Who do you trust more out of these two Clubhouse bios? I think you would trust the person to the left that actually can say they've appeared on all of these media outlets. If they've appeared there, it must mean that maybe they know something about the field. Who do you trust more? The person at a conference who can showcase our business has been featured in Cranes, right? If I'm going after a business audience and I want to be around other business owners, Cranes is something that is important to that audience. I know this, right? So it's not only getting press online, it's also taking that press and showcasing it when you go to conferences or trade shows and showing it here. So who are you going to trust more? The person who was displaying lots of promotional ads at a trade show or conference, or the person who can showcase press? Usually, it's the press that will always win out. So how do you increase your visibility on search engines with digital PR? I'm going to teach you how. SEO ultimately can either help or hurt your ability at securing press coverage. If you don't take it seriously, it's going to really hurt what we do as PRs with the campaign. And it's going to hurt it because it's going to make it harder for people to find that you're an expert in what you say you are. If a reporter can't find you, why would they quote you as a source. It's just not going to happen. It's you being an expert means that your expertise is displayed in search engine results. Being an expert is not that no one has ever seen you, they can't find you, you make it really hard for them to find you, that your website's outdated, that when we go to the image results that you're nowhere. This is an example of when I type in my name is Kris Ruby, I type in Kris Ruby here on Google Images, which by the way, I think like appearing in the image component of Google is it's a huge PR tactic that most people just, I think, really overlook. The reason why I'm showing you this is not to show you lots of pictures of me, but to show you that when I look at these, all of these are press results, right? Business Collective, Idea Mensch, Speaker Hub is a directory, Bravo TV, that's media, right? Kris Ruby is my own site. RubyMediaGroup is my site. Speaker Hub is another directory. Patch, this is media. Fox Business, well, that appears on my site, but that's me leveraging the press I get and optimizing these images appropriately. Blitzmetric that's a guest post. Muse by Clio, that's some sort of a award or Publicist of the Week or something of that nature that I got from them. Here's the podcast. This is something on WeWork. This is, again, Bravo. This other thing is a podcast that I was on. The Bill O'Reilly. All of these things, every single image that you see here is from PR and media, right? So if you want to build the image results, you have to be doing media. It's important. So how producers, bookers, and editors make decisions based on search, they're going to do what I just showed you. They're not only going to look at the regular organic results, they're going to look at the images, they're going to look at the video section, they're going to look at news. They want to see, has your name been in news for your subject area recently? What happens when they go to YouTube? Can they see you talking about something that you say you're an expert in? And when they go to images, what do you look like today versus 10 years ago? They want to see all of these things. Who do you trust more? A booker or a producer, by the way, who they trust more is not just going to be a regular headshot. They're going to want to see images like this. They want to see pictures of people who are already on air. So if you're pitching someone, they want to see when is the last time that person was on air. Do you have pictures or a screen grab of when they're on air, and what does that look like, right? So that is who they're going to trust more. They're going to infinitely trust that more than a studio headshot. However, studio headshots are still really important, because everyone needs good studio headshots and high-res headshots, also showcasing what they do. So I always say that high-res studio photography builds trust. Don't overlook this. These are studio shots. One on the right was taken in studio, actually at a magazine, and then the one on the left, the reason I love this photo is because I had someone, a photographer that we hired that day, follow into, right before I went on air, this was at TD Ameritrade in Times Square. The reason I like this is because it actually shows what I do. So many of the time we do these fancy photos, but we don't show anyone what it is that we do. If you're not on air, if you're a political pundit, take pictures showing what it's like if you're on air. Whatever it is that you are an expert in, you need images that support that expertise. That's why personal branding photography is an entire subdivision, I think, in many ways, of public relations. The fact of the matter is, are you worthy of being trusted by your constituents, peers, prospects, strangers, and members of the media? Have you put in the work to be a subject matter expert? Why should I trust you? Why should the media trust you? Are you truly the go-to expert? Do search engine results support or refute your expertise? Are you a self-proclaimed expert, or do others recognize you as an expert? Have you done the work to be an authority online and off? Are you deserving of the media's trust? Should a producer give you airtime in the format of earned media for your subject matter expertise? And can you clearly demonstrate your expertise as well as case studies? Here is a fact that many people are not going to like. A PR firm cannot make you an authority. I know, it's sad. I know we live in a world today where really we just want to outsource this. We want someone to do the hard work for us. We don't want to take responsibility. But I'm here to say you have to take responsibility for your career, for your life, for your subject matter expertise. The more you do that, the more any SEO firm, content marketing firm, or public relations firm can help you. But they can't be that thing for you. They can only shine light on the authority that you've already built. They can give you ways of how you can be more magical, what you can do to get found and stay found. But they don't have the knowledge you have. If you're a neurosurgeon, they're not in your brain. They don't know what you know. They don't have, you need to put that somewhere for them to extract that and then for them to work their magic with it. So the best way to truly build EAT is really not what most people say online. You know, most advice tells you to build digital authority with these same tried and true tactics that everyone else is doing. But if you truly want to build expertise and authority and take your brand and your business to the next level, which everyone has this amazing opportunity to do right now as we live through this digital PR revolution, I think, of many sorts, stop looking for growth hacks and tactics and shortcuts. They're all shortcuts. And really say, what can I do? How can I up-level my expertise as a subject matter expert? And when you think about that, everything else is going to fall into place. Everything else is going to be so much easier. You're going to be in harmony with the agencies you hire instead of working against them, because you're going to give them more to work with. The wrong question to ask is, how can I get more PR? The right question to ask is, how can I contribute to my field so that media comes to me for inbound requests and that things start flowing in unity with the actual media ecosystem. The people that get PR, that aren't even trying to get PR, that the media comes to them and they say, you know, Kris, what do you think about this? Spotify, Green Room versus Clubhouse. The people that the media system works for are the people that understand the system and work within the system instead of work against it. Okay? They're not trying to game that system. They're not trying to come up with spin. PR is not just spin, and I hate when people say it's spin. PR, true PR, actually shouldn't be about spin. It should actually be really thinking about and refining your knowledge in an area and giving that to the media so that you can help inform the public. That's not spinning something. It's taking the time to truly be an expert in something and then sharing that opinion on that expertise. It's very different than spinning it. I can't really stress that point enough. I think something in its truest form should not ideally need to, do the spin game around it. It should be coming up with those true moments and those true stories and figuring out how you can have more of them, not figuring out how you can spin something or do a publicity tactic to get a blitz in the media that ultimately may not even achieve your goals just to say that you got the media. I'm not sure that makes the media system a better place. I'm not sure that truly informs the public. I'm not sure that even helps your ultimate goals of why you hired someone to begin with. So I think these are, it's easy to spout out these things, but ideally you want to think about, what can I do? How can I have a more sustainable PR strategy that actually works for my company? It will be easier on you, it will be easier on the agency, and you'll be happier with the results. I can assure you of that, because you're not going against the system, you're working within that system. It's a big difference. Ultimately, trust can't be outsourced, and authority can't be outsourced. Most importantly, expertise can't be outsourced. You must be willing to do the work, and if you're not, even the best content marketer, SEO, or PR firm can only take you so far. So part 2 of this presentation is, how do you truly build expertise, authority, and trustworthiness? Well, there's good news and bad news here, right? It starts with you, and that starts offline. So here are some of the things that you can do to build trust. 1, only speak on topics you're truly an expert in. This is really hard. In medicine, there's something called the scope of practice. And what that means is truly understanding what is in your wheelhouse to talk about and what is outside of it. The media is always going to pull you in on things that are important to them and their readers, but they don't know what your scope of practice is. You have to hold the line on what that is and let them know, because you can make a mistake. If you speak on something that's not truly within that wheelhouse or your scope of practice, it can actually hurt your online reputation, which can hurt your rankings and can hurt EAT, all the things we talked about. So that's on you to take and keep control over that component of it. So turn down requests that are outside of your scope. Keep commitments for media interviews. Show up early if it's a Skype interview. Be prepared. Invest in lighting. Invest in a good camera. Invest in a home studio. All of these things are prerequisites today in this post-pandemic world we're living in. Create content that builds trust. Understand and comply with FTC disclosures. And add industry certifications. Do things that help people trust you. So what are the core tenets of trust the media wants to see when researching a source? Is this person who they say they are? Can they truly add value to my show? And by the way, this is why the media wants to a lot of times pick up the phone and do a pre-interview now. Because because they can tell in a few minutes if this person really knows what they're talking about, or if they have just researched something online and are regurgitating answers from Google. Will there be true information gained from this guess? This is again, I think a really important line in this whole thing. We know that Google cares about information gain, but did you know that the media also cares about information gain? This is where I think a lot of people go wrong. When we talk about Harrow, Help a Reporter Out, when they give answers, they just answer a question. So if someone says, how do I put it? What is Clubhouse and why does it matter? A lot of people can just answer what is Clubhouse. What they can't answer is what it really means for the industry or for people or why that matters. So they give these answers that are the same answers that anyone could give on what Clubhouse is. What they're not giving is their opinion as a subject matter expert. So that component of information gain from a guest or a source is actually really why someone is going to be used versus why someone won't be. This matters. Having an opinion matters. Showcasing your expertise matters. Are you reliable and dependable, and do you contribute to the industry? So what makes a source credible is that they're featured in industry publications and consumer-facing outlets, certifications, awards, business associations, reviews, press media coverage, webinars, and speaking at conferences like you're doing today. So if you are a conference speaker, make sure you update your LinkedIn, let people know that you're doing this. All of this adds to your subject matter expertise. So that is a win for anyone who's speaking today. How to turn media coverage into content that ranks, right? You want to create a brief outline of the topic of the interview. Integrate the top people also ask questions into the FAQ page of your media kit. Leverage podcast episodes by transcribing, optimizing, and adding rich media optimization and relevant media interviews. And create pages out of media content instead of one-off photos. And I'm going to walk you through a before and after of what this means. This is the biggest mistake that I think that most people make in digital PR. And digital PR can be the missing link in your content marketing and optimization strategy if you think about it the way that I'm going to teach you, right? So publicity opportunities should provide long-term value for content repurposing. But in order for these opportunities to provide long-term value, you have to be very strategic with what you say yes to and what you say no to. To extract maximum value out of what you say yes to, be prepared to provide an overall additional depth of content and context to your overall content marketing strategy. Without doing this additional SEO work, you're simply going to have a bunch of media placements that don't tie into any topical relevance or cluster of authority. The content that you speak on should add value to the topic. The media interview should support the authority base and knowledge around that topic. So the press hit that you do in a silo most likely won't be enough to rank on SERPs or on your website without further optimization. This is where, again, this cycle, you need all three working together. So the authoritative content that you create before and after the press placement is what will help you rank actually in organic search results in correlation to the press mentions. And I'm going to show you before and after. So this is what I used to do before I really learned more about this area and started using MarketMuse. So I would dump all of dump is really the word. I would dump all of these press hits, and there were many that I create. And anytime I was on air, I would do the same thing, And I know every SEO is cringing right now because they're like, oh, this is terrible and duplicate content and this is too long and this is keyword and all these bad things. I know, I hear you. But that's why I'm showing you this, because I'm going to show you, the other side of this. So the mistake that is made here, there are many. I know there are many. One, the slug is way too long, but really the biggest mistake is that I was optimizing by the person speaking instead of what the person was speaking about. People are not searching for, Kris Ruby discussing this Amazon device. Who cares? What they're searching for is the Amazon device. That's what they want to know. It's great that you got on TV, but that is not what people care about. What they care about is what you're talking about on TV and that topic. So if you want to figure out how you can tie in PR to content marketing to SEO, this right here is it in a nutshell. It's not optimizing around you, which every personal branding expert will tell you, no, optimize around you and your name and that you're an expert. No, you want to optimize around the topic it is that you're talking about. Now, I've done this strategy, and I can definitively tell you the pages that I've gone back and fixed, there are hundreds of pages like this that I did on my own site that had this mistake. The ones that I actually fixed and the new ones that I made, for example, if I did TD Ameritrade and the topic was Facebook dating, and I made it, the slug was Facebook dating, privacy concerns. I see a nice chart and it just goes up. I don't know if you can see me. Up, like that, exponentially up because I created it around what people are searching for, which is Facebook dating privacy concerns. It was not anything to do with me. It was actually all about the topic. And the press hit, right, just supported that. And I used it as rich media optimization for the page or the content, right? It built out an entire page of content, and that is how you can actually get press hits to rank. It's not that it's going to rank somewhere else. You can actually make it rank on your website if you know how to do this methodology that I'm teaching you right now, right? So optimize press by the topic of the interview, not by the outlet of the name. Add the content, build out each press page. Make it a page, not just something in a portfolio, but make it an actual full-blown page. The interview then can support your content goals, so it's a win-win. So remember, when people are searching on Google, they want to know what's in it for me. They don't care that you're on TV talking about Facebook dating. What they want to know is what's going to happen if I swipe right on Facebook dating, and who can see that? They have Facebook dating privacy concerns. They are searching for those concerns. But what if you knew that, and what if you then created a page all about these Facebook dating privacy concerns, and you just happen to add in the rich media optimization of the link on YouTube talking about these concerns? Do you see how that's flipping the switch? This one tactic can change your whole approach to digital PR, content, and SEO. It is the single-handedly biggest tactic that I've seen the largest growth in from an SEO perspective over the past year, but it takes a lot of time. It's not for the faint of heart. And it means that your PR team and your content team and SEOs have to be talking and working together to do this strategy right. When you post a video on TV, all they see is what's in it for you. You have to think about what's in it for them. And this is where it all is critical. Now, this isn't an aftershot. This is an aftershot of what I'm talking about here, of this strategy done right. And this page is probably, I don't know, more than 3,000 words. So what happened? I'll walk you through what happened. I did a live segment on Cheddar TV at the New York Stock Exchange. Okay, the topic was advertising in the digital era. So I did the segment first, and then instead of doing this the old school way that I used to do, which is dumping it on a page, creating a new page and saying, social media expert, Kris Ruby on Cheddar, talking about marketing, right? Something no one's searching for. They don't care that social media expert Kris Ruby is on TV talking about something else again, because that's not for them. That's about the person, right? Also, that also creates tons of duplicate content on your site and all sort of issues with every SEO here knows the issues it creates. But here's, after doing keyword research, what people do care about. What they do care about is traditional marketing, or traditional marketing versus traditional marketing versus traditional marketing. I'm not sure about this. Traditional marketing versus, I'm not, oh, serious? What they care about is traditional marketing versus digital marketing is what I meant to say there. Okay, that is what they care about, traditional marketing versus digital marketing. That is the topic that I optimized for, and now this is like one of the highest ranked pages on my site, because I figured out this is what people care about. So step one, you do the hit, and then you do nothing with it, you wait. Step two, you do keyword research, and you look at, based on what I spoke about, what is the topic that actually people are searching for? Then you create content around that topic, which you see here. And then, of course, you're going to do all of your SEO tricks to help rank for that content, like answering questions and people also ask, optimizing it. And this strategy, I'm telling you, you're going to be like blown away if you do this for your press hits. And you can just do historical optimization on all of your old press hits. This is like, they're probably on your site right now, but you can redirect some of those URLs, or you can just update the older pages of content and actually add in what are the questions people have about the topic you spoke about. And you'll be amazed. You'll see a lift from these pages that are, probably have cobwebs on them on the press section of your site. So you want to make the core focus point the topic you're speaking on rather than the press mention as the focus. And when you do this, you're going to transform your content marketing strategy and create PR for SEO content that converts. In order to rank on organic search results, the press page, those individual blog posts displaying the media interview must be built around the questions they're searching for, the topic you're building authority around, information gain on, that topic in the eyes of Google. Without all three of these things, you're simply dumping a photo and video on your site. Furthermore, you're creating hundreds of pages of thin content. which is, it doesn't add value to the user, it doesn't add value to Google or for the searcher, so don't do that. It hurts your site more than it helps it. How you leverage media appearances is equally as important as getting the media coverage in itself, right? It's not just getting the media, it's what you do with the media. That is really how you use it to build your brand that counts. So people just go from hit to hit to hit. A hit is a media mention, but then they don't really accurately display all of those hits. And again, you're not getting as much as you could out of it if you know how to package that together. So media placements in a silo don't convey authority. Why are we talking about authority? Because Google cares about authority. EAT, as we talked about when we started, right? You want to convey that authority that Google is looking for. Media coverage in a branded package conveys that authority. So here are the 10 steps to building your digital authority, and we are only 10 minutes away from the end of this. I know you have been with me for a while. Thank you, hang in there. Have some coffee, have some water. I wish I had some water right now. I do not, but hopefully you do. Make unstructured content like podcast transcriptions and press mentions structured for maximized SEO value. What is the topic you want to build authority on? So do interviews on that topic and related topics, and don't veer too far away from that topic or cluster of topics. When hosting a webinar or guesting on a podcast, know what SEO terms you want to rank for before the interview, not after, and work those keywords into the conversation. This one hack alone will really help you rank if you care about merging digital PR and SEO. Structure your content around the questions people are asking before the media interview instead of after, and use content marketing to control that narrative by creating content around the source content, press mentions, media mentions, and publicity. So here's an action item for everyone today, because this is the MarketMuse Content Strategy Collective Live. So what I want you to do is create a content brief in MarketMuse prior to a media or podcast interview. You're going to be blown away with how much this not only helps you, it can help the podcast host. I've done this so many times with client interviews, and they're thrilled that I've handed them this detailed outline because you're helping do the SEO work for them. And it actually, it's a brief that guides and structures the conversation in a much better way for the listener and the audience too. So use that content you created to help structure and guide your conversation. This will lead to better interview, better results, and it's also much easier to optimize structured content than it is to optimize without a focused keyword. So here's an example of what I'm referring to. If you, I did a webinar with MarketMuse on Clubhouse and disappearing audio content. But then I also took that, I transcribed it, and then I created a great piece of content that I urge everyone to read today. It's like 20,000 words actually, and it talks. It's a continuation of what we're talking about today. I will figure out how to add that link somewhere on LinkedIn after this presentation, or I'll put it on Twitter so that you can see it. But it's digital PR for SEO tips. And as far as Clubhouse and disappearing audio content, you can see all of these terms, by the way, tell me these need to be incorporated into not only the brief, but into the conversation and into the outline of what I'm going to write. I can see the questions. When I put this into MarketMuse, I can see these are the questions people have about Clubhouse. Well, that's really important to know. If you're doing a webinar or podcast about Clubhouse, I want to answer these questions. I'd rather see these questions before I do the interview, before I do the webinar, than after. I also see the frequency. How many times should we be talking about rich media optimization? Well, MarketMuse tells me 1 to 2. Content marketing strategies, a 10. Like their audio file, audio marketing, 1 to 2. That's interesting. Audio marketing may not have been a phrase I ever even thought to use. So this is why Instagram Reels, Instagram Reels is related to this. That may not have been something I instantly thought of, but this tells me if I want to create the best piece of content on the internet about this, this needs to be part of my conversation in this webinar, and this is how you can use MarketMuse for your digital PR strategy. Another amazing feature within MarketMuse is this newsroom, right? So when I put Clubhouse into newsroom, this tells me this topic has significant overlap in the news top 20. Well, that's important to know for your PR campaign. I can see what the related news topics are to this, which is important. But this right here in newsroom is very important, because if I'm about to go and do an interview on Clubhouse, number 1 here ranking, this tells me, wait a second, this week in the app, this is talking about Spotify. Spotify debuts a Clubhouse rival. Facebook tests audio rooms in the US. Amazon cuts out. So that part I don't care as much about, but this is going to help me prepare for that interview. So if you're about to go on air and you're about to talk about Clubhouse, that host will have done their research, right? The anchor is clearly, most likely going to throw you a curveball about Spotify, but when I look in MarketMuse newsroom, I am prepared. I'm better prepared for that interview as a guest to know that Spotify debuting a Clubhouse rival is part of this conversation. Now, I already knew that, right? Because I've already logged hours on there myself. But if you haven't, and this is how you can use MarketMuse and their newsroom to really keep up to date with what's going on. You should always see that, and always go to Google News before you do an interview so you know if any changes have happened with what it is you're talking about. So, should you accept a media request if it doesn't align with your topic cluster? Well, if you say yes to a media opportunity and then display the media on your website as a page versus a logo, you have to be really discerning with the topic, right? You want to make sure you're prepared to build out long-form content that supports your topic cluster if you want to extract SEO value from the press mention. Because what you don't want to do is say yes to things that, let's say I, as a political commentator, let's say I say yes to a bunch of things about, the election, but is that going to hurt my content strategy for my PR firm site? Like, does that hurt the topic cluster? Does it add to it, or does it help it? Now, that's an individualized content strategy answer that I won't get into here, but this is where MarketMuse, I think, can really come into play, where you look at the things that they're telling you have topical authority on. Most people don't know that, especially people like myself, I think, who are in the media, who are not thinking about that, or who do two things that really compete in many ways with each other, right? So on the one hand, here is the person who is a social media expert running a PR firm, and then you also have a political commentator. So how is Google seeing that? How can you make those things all come together? You have to be thinking about these things, that I think, in a way that people haven't traditionally thought about them. Again, this is why PR, SEO, and content marketing need to tie together. You need to think about all of these things for your brand today. Does the topic align with the purpose of the page or your personal brand of your business? So say no to something if you don't want to build out a rich page of content around it. I've started saying no more and more, which is crazy. I mean, many people are like, what do you mean you're saying no to media interviews? But I know what is required to build out the best piece of content on the internet for that page, and how you know what is required, right? And so if you want to do the interview and you don't want to do what is required after that, you have to really make that, calculation of where you want your time to go. So we are almost at the end here. This is a 1 hour presentation. We have 3 minutes left to that hour. Okay, the key takeaways here are that PR and SEO can and should work together. If you are investing in a PR agency and a content team and an SEO firm, you're not getting as much as you could if you had them working together instead of in silos. I know you think you're going to get more out of everyone if they don't talk to each other, but it's actually not true. You're going to be happier with the results if they're working in unity with each other. And demand from your PR agency or content team or SEO team, demand that we raise the level, we raise the bar here, that we don't just say, you know what, I don't do that. I only stick to my lane, and I don't understand these things, because only sticking to your lane is actually a liability for your business today. Only sticking to your lane means that you don't really know what EAT is as a PR professional, and that means that only sticking to your lane is going to inevitably hurt your results, and you're not going to get as much as you could if someone ventured outside of their lane and tried to understand these things and thought about your business and how you can be complying with all of these things and being the ultimate expert, the ultimate authority, and building the highest level of trust with people, not only with people and searchers, but also with the media. PR and digital PR is a critical component of the EAT and the Quality Radar Guidelines. So how can you build your expertise, authority, and trust without PR? You can't. I'm going to say that again, and I'm sure lots of people are really, this is going to cause a big debate after this, but that's okay. Bring it on. Let's do a Clubhouse or Spotify room on Green Room after this. I'm happy to debate anyone on this. You can't. You cannot truly meet what they are asking for with expertise, authority, and trust without digital PR. If they want to see that other people are calling you the ultimate expert, the best way to build that is with digital PR. So you actually truly cannot even comply with what they are asking for if you're not thinking about digital PR. It means what you're doing is ignoring that part of it. And I don't recommend that you do that. PR agencies have been building backlink profiles of clients for years. Most of them don't realize it. and this is why, understanding like things like, anchor text and what these search terms you want to rank for are really important. Links are a byproduct of media mentions. They're not guaranteed, but they are an added bonus. Can you imagine how powerful your strategy could be if you had your PR agency and an SEO agency actually talk to each other instead of pretend that they don't exist, instead of working in silos? The results could be incredible. So we've talked about a lot. I know we only have 1 more minute left. For those of you who stuck with me for this full hour, I know there was a lot of information in here, and I'm sorry I sort of talked really fast through all of it. But there's so much that I wanted to get out there to you. It is an honor and a privilege to speak to anyone here in this audience today. The people who are associated with the Content Strategy Collective Live that MarketMuse has put on are the top SEOs and content marketers in this industry. And so, hat to all of you for the incredible contributions you make to this industry. And it was really important for me that what I built here was a contribution as well that can be helpful for very advanced senior level marketers and SEOs. So I hope that this was helpful. If it was, please let me know. If it wasn't, let me know that also. But I think the key takeaway here is that we have to think about how can we build trust? How can we think about actually being an expert, not getting more PR, but actually being that expert that people want to quote, right? Not trying to growth hack our way to get more press, 20 hits in 20 days. No, trying to be the ultimate expert that brings you inbound media and press coverage. So I want to leave you with that today. I will add that link to my website, which you can find at RubyMediaGroup.com, where I talk more in depth about this topic, about PR for SEO. Again, it's a 20,000 page article. There's also a media relations guide. I think there's 2 free ebooks and lots more. And if there's anything that I can do to help you with building your personal brand, whether it's through PR, news, or images in the search results like we talked about today, let me know. My information is on here, and I'd love to help you because that's what I love doing. I'm pretty passionate about doing all 3 of these things together because I think when you do that, there's amazing things that can happen. And hopefully you saw some of that magic today, and we'll continue to share what that magic looks like with other case studies. So thank you so much. My name is Kris Ruby, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at this conference.